Hey everybody, welcome back to Untangling Circularity and Selling Circular. Can I just not get the word right? Is that the problem
No,
here?
you can't.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Then I'm gonna hand it over to Cynthia and Laura so they can introduce themselves.
Okay.
My name's Gar Punnett. I'm here with Loop Layer as usual, but I'm gonna turn it over to the pros over there. Cynthia, why don't you take it away?
Hey everybody, Cynthia and Laura here from Untangling Circularity. In case our reputation has not preceded us, I'm Cynthia. I work for my own business called Multivolte in circular fashion. What about you, Laura?
I am Laura Novich. I am a partner at Hilo, and we are a materials consultancy.
And I'm Sabira Lakhani. I am the Senior Director of Product at Reaply. We build software to help organizations track what they've made, what they've purchased, so that they can reuse it and maximize the life of things. We can extract less stuff from the earth.
And on that note, we just got back from Circularity 24, or at least a week of decompression from Circularity 24, and we got to all talk about our feelings post-conference. We're doing this intro right after we talked, so we know what we talked about. But please enjoy the conversation we just had. It's so great that we got to be together in this moment and have this collaboration live. Enjoy, everybody. I'm glad we're here. We finally set this up. We get
Yay.
to talk about what we love, both circular economy, circularity, but more specifically for today, Circularity 24. Where do we start off?
Well, it was cool
good.
to see each other.
It was.
In
It was
person.
cool to see each other.
That was cool,
Yes.
yeah.
It was good to be in
Lovely.
Chicago. That was easy for me. So that was nice. It was weird to be on
have to go
home
anywhere.
territory. Yeah, that was usually I have this whole conference routine, and it was like, oh, I just need to like show up and sort of bike down. So that was nice. But tell me, what
was
did y'all
your
think?
What's your conference routine though?
Oh well, that
Airplane,
it involves probably a lot more
hotel.
pump up than you all do. It's a lot of like staring in the mirror and being like, "You got this. Let's go get it." But I'm guessing you all don't do that.
I do that
Did.
before I do that before speaking, not before
Yeah.
like a conference in general.
Okay, well,
Interesting.
I just need a little
I
more
could
affirmation,
not
maybe.
look at my face before speaking. That would scare me.
Yeah, you're right. Won't do it in front of a mirror. I have to do it in front of like a wall.
Yeah.
See, we all got our things. Yeah. What'd you guys think about Chicago? How did we show up?
loved it.
How did we do?
I
Yeah.
loved it. I mean, yeah, we have all the things we can talk about. I'm trying out this new word, all the tea, right? Which is AKA gossip. I'm curious where that
The
came
young
from.
people.
Yeah,
new
but
thing?
was somebody
This
my
new
age?
thing?
Somebody my age started using it, so I'm like, I can use it if they're using it.
Of course.
So of course there's all the tea to talk about, but I loved being there. I feel like I turn into like just a social animal, really, and I feel like Gar. I
They're
really
good,
want to
Cynthia.
call you Gar, but I'm
I
gonna call
get
you
it a
Gar.
lot. Yes.
But I feel like maybe you're kind of like that as well. At least you give off vibes that you are quite the social animal as well. But maybe
Yes.
also like me, like I can turn it way on, like up to 100, and like I love it and I do it. And then I feel like after a certain amount of time, my brain actually just starts short circuiting and I
Yeah.
just can't remember anything. And I don't know it's like, it's a really physical breakdown. But I loved it for the most part.
Yeah. Same. Laura.
No, I'm not a social animal. The opposite. So that spike that you just mentioned happens very early on and probably immediately, and then starts plummeting. But it was nice to see a lot of people. That was nice. Especially people that you haven't really met, or you've met them online.
Yeah.
There's like a different type of connection when you actually can meet them in real life,
Yeah.
which was
Absolutely.
nice, really nice.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I had gone 2 years ago and I didn't know y'all then, but I had moved back from India and the pandemic was there and working at Reaply, and I just like hadn't gotten to the US network of circular economy. And so 2 years ago, I felt like really alone and like having to sell myself and sell Reaply and just like do all the like outwards connection. And this time it felt like there was like a lot of like, like we know each other. And like there was like that physical like moment of eye connection where you recognize somebody and there's like, oh, we actually like each other. And so that was really cool to feel community in a place where I hadn't felt before.
Actually, then speaking to that, I'd love your all's reaction on that. Was kind of one of the biggest things we talked about with John Schmeha, where what that feels like coming into a conference and being like, oh, I'm an outsider. How long did it take? I mean, how long has it taken for you all to not feel that? Or do we always feel an element of that? Or is it now we're just comfortable with the game of it where it's like, hey, I'm going to feel this for a little bit, but I know how to play this?
I think it depends who and where you are. Where in certain conversations, I still feel like an outsider, but then in certain conversations, I feel like I'm an insider. And there's other people that I can tell feel like an outsider, and so you want to kind of level the playing field and make them feel more comfortable to come into that conversation. But I don't feel like it's a lifelong journey to.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a start and an end, really. It's like a
forever impossible.
I agree. I feel like it's that. I totally agree. And I think it's across, like when you asked that question, I was thinking about the pool that I joined here when I moved to Austin 4 years ago.
Totally.
And the first year that I was there, I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. This is probably a waste of money. I don't feel like I know anyone. Like, ugh. And now 4 years later, I'm like, this is the best. I have all my people here. My child has friends to play with. Like, this is the best summer ever. But it's because I put those 3 years of pool time hanging out in. So I kind of feel similar about conferences where I was trying to imagine it's like Circularity. I've been multiple times. So I feel like I'm showing up to my community and I feel very comfortable. Like if I don't know somebody, meeting them, but also because the title is Circularity, like that's my jam. So I'm excited that all these, we already have something in common, right? But like if I imagine, I was trying to think like, oh yeah, if I went to some conference in Europe that I'd never been to, I would feel like a big fish out of water. I'm like curious, but I think that would, I think it would be a little tough. What about you, Gar?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been going every year since Minneapolis. And it's been a progression of really trying to get comfortable and know how to soft sell what maybe you are selling, because I've always done a lot of selling, and so for me, what I was talking to probably many about at the conference was, well, it's actually really not a selling conference. It's more a relationship development, and the sell will come. And it's not even a sell after that. After the relationship's already established, it's like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing of value. Do you think it's a value? And then some people will say yes, and some people will say no. And I think that's where, for so many, I think that go in maybe trying to sell, it's like, you know what? Don't go in just trying to make a connection and try to learn more about what's happening at the conference. And then that will matriculate into a good relationship of trying to find value. And that's, I think, but that took me too long to learn. I think probably a good 4 years almost, or 3 years. So it was, for me, this was the first time for me though, personally, where I got to walk in. The confidence of home territory of Chicago was nice, where I got to be like, okay, I'm home. I can go home and regenerate at any moment if I wanted to. And so that was nice. And totally. Yes, exactly. And so that's what I felt. And so it was good to just be in that type of environment. And for the first time too, see a lot of make those eye contacts with people and be like, oh my God, hi. And in a way that I think I've made so many connections this year, as well as sort of striking out on my own as we all have in lots of different ways. And so it was good. It was comforting this year. And that was nice.
And the three of y'all had panels also. So like you were
true
very much insiders in at least like being able to bring expertise, host a conversation, convene multiple other people who you had relationships with previously. How was that experience? I know Cynthia and Laura, y'all did it together.
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean, it was
there. It was
great.
great.
Oh, thanks, Severa. We planned this out months and months ago, right? This like because we started this podcast together, like you two, I'm sure in a similar fashion to you two, and when we did this season on repair across industries, I think it kind of felt like a little breakthrough for us in how we could use our podcast to kind of tell stories. And if Laura was telling the story, she would say conduct research. She loves research so much; it's her favorite thing. So we thought that we want to tell this story. Like, if we're going to put all this effort into this season, into this story, into all these guests, into everything, like we want to push it as far as we can. And we even in like trying to get sponsors for that season, we were telling them like we're going to be speaking at conferences about this. So it kind of then we applied to Circularity. Thankfully, we got in. And so I think all of that is to just set the context of like it felt very purposeful of like why we were going. I think it's nice to feel like if you're going as an attendee and you're not speaking, like you can have a certain purpose, and it's to meet people and build those relationships and everything, which hopefully everybody gets. But also, I think when you're speaking, you're kind of like maybe a little, for me, like a false sense of security. Like even if I do nothing else, I'm gonna do that speaking engagement. Which anyway, I don't know what you think about that, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, that was how I approached it too, was almost like low expectations, where I'm like, well, I'm going to present and I'm going to have this panel or this discussion. So everything else that happens is going to be great to add on top of that, because the sole purpose was that we were there to speak about our work and present it and have a discussion. So yeah, and I have never been to Circularity before, so this was my first one. So coming as a presenter was, yeah, it was a different, I'm assuming it's a different feel. Because again, that was my sole intention of going, was we're presenting this cool work that we did. And that's, the exciting part. So
Walking in with some confidence is nice. On getting like an automatic win category. Like you already got one.
Right?
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's that point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For me, it was a little bit of that as well. I did not have the total, seemingly great experience of having something set months in advance. I was hustling through reschedules and cancellations up until Monday or Tuesday. Yeah.
And when was yours?
Yeah.
Which
The
day was
before.
yours?
Mine was Thursday. So it was it was up until the last minute, which is the nature of calendars, I guess. But it was ultimately pulled it off. So it's like ultimately
turned out
got
good.
three great
Yeah.
guests and panelists, and we were able to facilitate a great discussion around remanufacturing strategies and client retention, and what does that do for ultimately the return of product back to manufacturers. And so I got a leader from Core Centric, which was a local company, so it's great to have some local representation. I got a leader from Train Technologies, Train being a big remanufacturer, and then another leader from Rockwell Automation, which does some great work on core take-back and product take-back, and also worked with Repley. And so I got this other element in where I got to weave in some previous experience at Repley and weave that into the conversation, which kind of hits on all notes. And I went heavy into audience participation. So I kind of warmed them up in the beginning, got them to understand that I really want questions for them. I had a set list of questions I was going to ask, and pretty much about 3 questions in, somebody raised their hand, and it was that choice of, do I go with this person and then just absolutely potentially open the floodgates, or do I keep the control a little? And we opened the floodgates. It was great.
Yeah.
And people just started raising their hand, interacting, disagreeing, kind of Cynthia spilling some tea on their industries, so to use your new phrase, and then and then it was great. From there, we were rolling. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do feel like that energetic part. Oh, sorry, Laura. Just really quick. I feel like the energetic part is a really, in terms of speaking and presenting, is like that to me is half of the presentation in terms of like, yeah, you need the expertise, but I think, and I do feel like it's taken for granted a lot, and I I even felt that like in the beginning, Laura and I showed up and we were ready to do our presentation. We loved our guest speakers and everything. And the first 5 minutes in the intro, and I'm thinking to myself, bleep, like we need to like, this, it's Friday morning, it's 9 a.m. Just because we were four great individuals who have a cool story to tell doesn't mean that this feels engaging or like exciting. And so I think that energetic, like, yeah, let's bring in the audience. Let's just kind of give it some hype. It's really important.
Yeah. Got to bring that heat.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like some of the best presentations that I went to there were ones that were very audience driven and not necessarily the ones that were like more of a controlled by the panel discussion where they were like, okay, now talk about this and then come back. It wasn't necessarily that. It was the ones where it was just question and answers, because those were the best ones. They were asking questions that weren't going to be brought up had they not asked that question. And then they were important. Like these were quality questions. And then they led to even more and then more thought. And then you have the panelists talking about it. And I was like, that's great. Like that's what, I want to hear that. I don't want to hear, just like a stale panel presentation. Like I want this to be what people are thinking and not just surface level. And I think like, Cynthia and I were trying to do that, but it's also hard because sometimes depending on the audience, depending on the time of day, Friday, 9 a.m., the last day of the conference, they weren't necessarily as excited to be there as we were. But
we're on the downturn as we
exactly. Like
yes.
Yeah. They were like really, really partying it up at the after party on Thursday night,
Yes.
And the conference hadn't even ended yet. So
The karaoke, yeah. Well, I thought it was, at least this time, I didn't go last year, but I felt like the content also gave birth to that energy a lot. Like you guys talked about repair and remanufacturing, which I hadn't really seen that on the docket 2 years ago. I also heard a lot about like pre-competitive collaboration, a lot of pilots, and in all types of industries. There was auto, there was building materials, there was textile. Damn it.
We're gonna keep going, Severa. We got a little bit of that, which was heard about repair, remanufacturing. There was auto, repair, textiles. That's where we left off.
Yeah, it was all different industries. And I think in terms of like, if I think about the butterfly diagram, we pushed a lot into the arenas that I hadn't seen at the conference 2 years ago. And that was really inspiring. And I think that's what also gave energy to the audience to engage, is because there was like real meat there, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pre-competitive collaboration, a lot of pilots, a lot of examples, like real things to talk about.
What's the butterfly diagram?
The Ellen MacArthur diagram.
Well, as a subject matter expert in circularity, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm going to have to look that up.
I'm going to pull it up for you.
I feel like we referenced this before.
No, you
really?
totally have. You totally have.
No, I haven't.
This might be your like downward like Friday morning.
No, it's you're exactly right, Severa. It what was interesting about, and I've seen the evolution now over the past 5 years, is it was so heavy packaging, plastics, realization from Cynthia in the moment, and it was so heavy that early on. It has been fun to see the evolution, and I think that's come from, I mean, we know the leadership at Green Biz works really hard to curate these things, but they need the input from the community to say, we want more of X, we want more of this than that, and so I'm grateful that I think hopefully people that are going are pushing that direction and saying, hey, these are great, but we want more of this relevance. Kind of, Laura, to your point on the audience input is the most important. Say, hey, this is the most relevant that we're finding in the industry, and a conference could do very easily or it can be very easy for a conference to ignore that voice. So it's good to see that they continue to listen.
It's also really hard to put on a conference where you have so many different people representing so many different types of products and companies. And that's hard because you're never going to appease everybody. And so they did have a lot of tracks, so you could kind of go towards your thing. And I guess that they were trying to spice up those tracks to keep them kind of not just like packaging directly, but maybe a little bit more integrated with other things, so it wasn't so.
This was one of my beefs, though, and by the way, I do know the diagram. I just didn't know it was called the butterfly diagram. That's like, okay, a new name for me.
You quoted that on something. I was like, what?
Okay. This was one of my beefs with the conference, and it's not like a true beef, but I just felt like there were so many tracks, and there is so much value in the crossover. Right, so like Rachel Kibbe was talking about how she's a fashion person and she's working in policy, but she was saying how she's been going to all the plastics ones because she feels like there's a lot to learn from plastics. Or I was trying to stick with fashion because that's my business and I want to be able to kind of come back and like tell my people, my clients about like what was going on in the fashion space. But then I feel like Gar, like you're one on remanufacturing. I love remanufacturing. Would have loved to hear about how that's happening in different industries or like how you're thinking about it. So I do feel like I know there's 1,400 people there. You know, you have to have a lot of places for those people to go. And at the same time, I kind of feel like there were multiple sessions where I was like very torn about which one to go to. And that felt kind of frustrating because I don't know. I guess maybe that means it's a good conference, but it felt frustrating to me.
Yeah, that was the other side of the coin. Yeah.
Yeah. The knowledge FOMO.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was great that there were a lot of tracks. And so, like, the follow-up to my point was also, it was really overwhelming as well. Like, there was a lot of things happening in the exact same time. And so, yeah, it was like FOMO, but then you're not even like just the fear of missing out. You're like, oh, I messed up and I went to the wrong one. This was stupid. I should have gone to that one. And you're like, I can't go to both of them. I'll just go to none, you know.
I'll just go upstairs to the hotel room.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. And I think that's actually, this was maybe the first conference, and this is maybe bold to say, but I even feel bad saying it. I almost edited myself, but I'll just say it, which is there were times where I was like, I don't need more of this information. I don't need what's going on, and I just walked out. And that was actually the first time for me that I was like, just real with the fact it was like, I'm sure what you're saying is of value to so many people, but I actually now, Laura, I'm feeling this knowledge FOMO. Cynthia, I want to go see what I can scrap together out of this next panel and just go over here and see if I can just get the best of both worlds. Have an and conference moment where I get to have both. Yeah. What? Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yes. I think it's always interesting the moments where you're meeting somebody for the first time and you're talking about what you're up to. Did you have any moments that stuck out where you were like, you had to get through this is what I'm doing, and then get them to be like, oh, cool, and then go from there and then really spark something? Did you have any of those moments?
Yes. Well, I had one first, like the first conversation I had was she was another consultant and like kind of looking for sales. So maybe she should have heard your expertise and guidance on don't try to sell immediately. So when I was explaining what I did, she immediately was like disappointed. And it was just a bad conversation because she was also trying to kind of one-up me. And I was like, oh, I'm not interested in selling to you, but you're clearly interested in selling to me. So this is just an awkward conversation.
And then had those in the past.
Yeah, it just felt like invalidating of like what I did. I was like, never mind, I don't do anything.
I'm just going to go back to my hotel room. I'm just going to
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I had a really fun... Oh, go ahead.
Please. No.
I had a really fun experience. So last year when I was at Circularity, it was about a month after I had officially launched my business, Multivolte. And so I felt like it was just the stars aligned for me that I was able to moderate a panel on resale. And I felt like that could not have been better timing or placement or whatever for me to have just started my business. But I did feel like I didn't have any clients. I was, and it took me a long time to get clients. And so that I was definitely more anxious and kind of nervous last time around in terms of talking with people and explaining what I did. And I wasn't even good at talking about what I did yet. I was still trying to figure out like what's of value and how do I talk to people and what are they looking for. So it was really nice this year to come back with so much more confidence. Now I have like a bunch of clients and I'm not looking for new clients at the moment. And like, I felt like I had one conversation with somebody that I actually felt like could be a potential client in the future, that like, who knows, but like definitely within that sphere. And I felt like I was providing so much conversation and just so much value in like a catch-up conversation of just, oh, well, what are you working on? And this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm hearing. And like, I'm not selling at all. I'm just like happy to connect with you. And I feel much more confident in what I know, what I'm doing, what I'm offering. So that actually felt fantastic. And I was really appreciative going in and knowing that like I'm planting seeds for the future, but I don't need anything to happen out of this, which I mean, I think is like just a nice place of privilege at the moment. And I'm sure I'll go back in the future and I'll be like, I really need a client out of this. But that was really nice.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to feel like I have individual interests and then I also have to represent the interests of my company that I'm here on behalf of. Because like I have personal curiosities and I want to learn and meet people and just like understand the universe of what's possible and meet the folks that might be future colleagues, right? And that's like we don't even know the time horizon of what that is. But then also at the same time trying to hustle and be like, oh, okay, I know Repley and Legrand have worked together in the past, but I haven't met those people. Let me make sure that I like meet them, start to form like an in-person relationship, try to validate a couple of ideas. And so like balancing that in my mind was also like on the layer on top of like the FOMO of which panel to go to.
Yeah.
It's like double, triple layer.
Absolutely.
Conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah. Making the money worth it to some degree and knowing that, that's always it. What ultimately, what did y'all feel like you got out of it? What were the takeaways that you got the most value from yourself?
Okay, so I'll you might want to edit this out. No, it's okay. One thing that I really it stuck with me and I'm still kind of dealing with is the price point of a conference like this, especially when the topic is circularity and it's supposed to be more inclusive of different, people and companies and, variety there. Only certain people were allowed to participate in this conversation, and that was hard for me to really take in and accept because you're hearing just corporate discussion and you're not like the other people that should have been in the room weren't in the room and just like weren't able to be in the room. And so I did see that like there was one panel with Repley and it had also like a nonprofit that was there because they were local to Chicago. And then it was also the Chicago Cook County government local agency there. So they're local, so they were able to come.
Yeah.
But
I
the
think that was Anthony.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. Anthony's great. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like they were there and that was great because they had so much passion and more so than I saw on a lot of the corporate people speaking. And so it was just disappointing that there weren't more of those people that are doing so much work at such a low cost or, low value in a sense or like low, payout. And, they just couldn't be a part of this conversation on so many different things. And that was one of my big takeaways was just this price point of it was hard
access.
Was just, anyways.
Yeah. No, I think I've been kicking that around a little bit of how do you get more, because that is ultimately the point of this movement. It's almost, I mean, I won't speak for you all. It's the point of why we're doing the podcast in general. Yeah. It's just to try to build the movement, create more conversation, and have more of these conversations outside of the boundaries of an expensive conference. And so it is tough. Access is tough in that way.
Yeah.
For me, that's a whole rabbit hole, and I feel like anyway, I don't need to comment on that. I respect that entirely. I think for me, I took away. I'm probably a little Pollyanna type, And I'm like, yeah, well, there were things that like I didn't love or whatever, but what did I really love? Like, what was great? And I think that I wrote a recap in my newsletter of the ones that the sessions I really loved, which was one on fashion policy. And again, I think it was partially I was really interested in policy and how it might support circular economy for the fashion industry. But part of what made it great was the diversity in terms of that panel, in terms of there was like a postdoctoral fellow, there was somebody from a corporation, there was somebody from a consulting business, there was, a teacher, like it was all kind of very mixed, and they were all very passionate, to your point, Laura, very passionate about what they're doing. And I would say probably a good mix of that crew would not have been able to afford attending if they hadn't been speaking. So I kind of see speaking as one of the ways, like if nonprofits or other passionate folks are listening, it's a great way to nominate yourself and to like get into these spaces at a much lower cost. I mean, that's the only way I could go. Like I wouldn't have paid for a ticket myself. I couldn't right now. So I loved the policy session. I really love networking, as we've been talking about, just like chatting with people in kind of my community. But in terms of other like great takeaways, I think I love I saw a pre-competitive session. I think I was sitting with Sabira and that, and just hearing competitive shoe companies talk about how they're working together. And again, not just the content, but the vibes. It was really good vibes. It was also for women talking about how they're working together, and they're coming from these huge companies, New Balance and Crocs and On Running, or I don't some mix of those companies, and how they are finding ways to work together and clearly love working together. I think that those are the types of things where I feel like it is possible, and it doesn't. I think I'm kind of hyper focused on this LinkedIn conversation I'm having right now, and I feel like it's just this dichotomy of like somebody saying like this is not possible, like kind of stop trying, and I'm like, no, there's lots of possibility. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, or like, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm just saying like there are good people out there doing good work.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is inspiring, that will make other people want to do good work. And we don't know what the limits of that is yet. So like when I get inspired by people, I feel like it's a really good sign.
I love what you just said, and I think it's so accurate, and I want to get back to that. But I also want to get back to, are you having a LinkedIn beef with someone right now?
Yeah.
It's not a beef.
Rolling going on.
Yeah, are you getting at it? Okay.
It's not a beef. I would just say, I mean, no, I think this, I feel fine kind of putting this out there. Ken Pucker is an academic who has a lot of opinions on sustainability and the circular economy. And he puts a lot of content out there, and it is like really interesting, very well researched, like well thought through. But I feel like a lot of the time it kind of ends on this, this is why this isn't possible note. And I don't know if he's just doing it to be like provoking or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and he always like creates a list of people that he references at the bottom. And I
You're
read
one
him.
of those people.
He's really interesting, very thought provoking, like appreciate it. And yesterday I made it into his list of people, which I had never made it into his list of people before. And I was like, okay. So I wrote back a lengthy response to his kind of his post, which was kind of like, yeah, circularity is like well-meaning and everything, but here's why it's not really viable. And I was kind of like, just a minute. Please don't say that. Here's why. Here's all my thoughts. So it's definitely not a beef, and but it's more like I don't want people giving circularity a bad name. I'm part of this movement. Like I love what I'm doing. I don't pretend that it's gonna like take over the world, or we're all gonna become like 100% circular and whatever, unless you live in like Norway, which no one here does. So I just I want to like keep the good name of good work going. Yes.
Yeah, I think that actually speaks to maybe a thread in general of this isn't attainable. And I think that's actually something that I heard a couple times, not in that exact phrasing, but that we were doing work to advance a cause of being better and reclaiming more. And that I think was really healthy to get out there. That I think what's so often is like, oh, well, we can't attain that. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's about what if we did 5% better? And I think that's a win that people don't understand the ramifications of. And that was healthy to hear in some of the conversations at Circularity. I have actually not gotten into any writing.
Beefed?
I wasn't going to say the word again, but yeah. And I am now that you're doing it, Cynthia, I'm like, okay, I want to be a defender of this industry. Like this is, and because I see them happen, but there's a part of me that's like, I also had a father for forever who loved Twitter beefs. Loved them. And every time I used to see him online get into these Twitter feuds, and I'd be like, Dad, what are you doing? Like this is not a hill you want to die on. And it's like, you know what? Maybe I can take up this mantle of my father and start to defend the industry I love. Yes.
Such a
Okay,
commitment.
I just need to clarify. Not a beef.
We took beef out of the vernacular. Beef's out.
The tea,
Yes.
though.
And
There is
I am.
tea.
Thanks a lot. And great thank you to my first employer, Eileen Fisher, and the woman herself, who's very much just like so collaborative, so inclusive, right? So I would just say, I don't flatter myself that Ken Pucker is listening, but Ken, I'll just say to you out loud here, and I said to you on my LinkedIn post, like, always happy to talk about this stuff. And I assume, we both have great intentions, but I think it's more like when I feel, as Carrie Bradshaw said on Sex and the City, I am dating myself. It's like
Not anymore.
Wow,
We've got
not
movies.
anymore,
Yeah,
yeah.
not anymore.
She's
Yeah.
relevant.
she's in
Oh.
she's if New York City is the love of her life, like she can't have nobody talking shit about her boyfriend, right? So like I've been working in Circularity for a really long time and I'm really happy doing it and I believe in it. So like when I see someone kind of being like, is it or isn't it a thing? I'm like, oh, it's a thing. And I'm going to tell you
It's a
all
thing.
about it
Good.
because I believe in it.
Good. Thoughts, y'all?
I think the industry or the work that we do, like that's the nature of it every day anyway. Like you're always convincing somebody who doesn't understand what could be possible, what the possibilities might be. And you have to like reach into your tool belt every day. And I feel like this like anxiety inside, like churning when trying to convince somebody of like what's possible. And bumping into some of those people at Circularity that that you've had a little bit of like friction with before, where they've like rejected your ideas or rejected opportunity by poo-pooing what Circularity could be, that also feels a little icky. And so I thought it was interesting to feel that feeling in person and then like, okay, like I know our history. I know where I've like tried to convince you of something before and you were like, and so it's interesting to hear that you're doing that on LinkedIn too. But to me, that's the nature of the work, which is
I'm doing
also
it
feels like
online.
such a
Doing it online.
uphill mountain. Like it's such a long journey.
Yeah, and Sabira, you remind me. It's something that I had to get over, which is I had someone who I was trying to sell to for years, and I would see them at these conferences, and I would send these emails, and she would punt them, and I took it as a personal challenge to be the absolute nicest I could be every time we saw each other at these, and just be like, how are you? How is it going? Like, this is so great. You're doing such great. And it was just like this thing that I just took up where I was like, it was only literally one person who I was like, you know what? You're going to be my best friend every conference and I'm going to make you like me. And not for the sake of the company, but just for the sake of we can all do this together. Like this is, and so, yeah, you just reminded me of that. I haven't thought about that in years, or a year at least. So yeah, Sabira. Well, I leave it, Cynthia, Laura, how do we want to land this collab? What do we want to end on? What's the note? Sabira always likes to end on like what gives us hope, but I want to see what you all think. What's your landing? How would you want to land this?
I mean, I think you just said it. It's collaboration.
Okay.
I think that
Yeah.
was something
Yeah.
that I saw throughout the conference as well. Like the most successful circular like accomplishments were because of collaboration and from places that you might have thought were competing that weren't necessarily competing, and they didn't need to compete in that sense. So, yeah, collaboration. Look at us.
Yes.
We're two
I
podcasts.
want to land this
Cross-
Yeah,
in.
exactly. That's fair. Yes. This is actually, Laura, what a great example. No, I don't know why that didn't occur to me. Yeah, no, we are doing that. We're trying to do that live here. Yeah. Cynthia, sorry.
No, I agree. I mean, my first thought is I'm like, I want to do this again. Maybe this should be like a quarterly or something episode about. It could be unplanned like today. Laura, hold on to your pants, and it could be great. In terms of other landing, yeah, I love the collaboration point. I actually really like Severa, what you just said about it's kind of like building I say this too much, but it's like you're building a bridge as you walk on it. And one of the things I said in my now infamous amongst us LinkedIn post is like, if you're working towards a moonshot, like
I'm going to clip that. The clip is going to get clipped. Like, it's going to be a great clip. So
on LinkedIn.
If you're working towards a moonshot, you don't have the data to back you up. Like, I feel like there's such an obsession with data in our culture right now about like you only do something with the right data and and I'm like, I get it. I get where that's coming from. I think it has value in a lot of ways, but also I really enjoy operating from a place of way less data, which I think drives Laura crazy. But it's good. We complement each other in that way. And I'm just like, what feels right? What do I want to do? Like, what do I want to pursue? Like, I don't care what the data says. And as long as I can like pay my bills, then I can do whatever I want. So I think it's just this idea of like, for me, landing it is kind of this continued, like, keep going on the path that feels right. And, keep trying to build towards the vision that, the four of us and many others from the Circularity Conference are holding of this kind of slightly different world, or it could be radically different or slightly different, whatever. But like, we believe in it and we're working towards it. So that's what I'm landing on.
I love that. I also think like what y'all have done in your podcast, the models with which you've experimented, are like focusing on different topics, bringing in different people. I think that also has been inspiring to learn from y'all. And I mean, that's also the nature of the conference, right? You come, you bump into people, you bump into knowledge, you bump into your own emotions, and then you leave hopefully with that same vision that you're talking about, Cynthia, and then you evolve how you approach that vision. And that's the only way we could move forward, which it's gotta embrace it.
Yeah. I think the sharing, I think we're all now in agreement on just, there's a vulnerability in sharing. There's a vulnerability in saying, this is what I've done. This, Cynthia, to your point, this is the value I'm trying to bring to you over what I've learned and helped clients with. And it's the vulnerability of that is I'm most probably kind of obsessed with, because I think it's applicable when a brand, when a person, whoever brings their work and says, this is what I've found, how can we work together to forward this? My obsession in that vulnerability and almost particularly in remanufacturing is the amount of players, and we all have seen this, the amount of players involved, the stakeholders involved to make something work. Everyone has to be a little bit vulnerable in what they do or don't do well. And it's almost like the manifestation of that in people form at a conference, and being okay with sharing and being okay with being rejected. What gives me hope is that we get to demonstrate that. Laura, I'm almost stealing the point you made of, we got to demonstrate that here. We got to demonstrate that in person. We got to go and hide away and come back, like go regenerate and come back and then just try to just be our best selves and present our work. And it's weird and vulnerable, but that's what we get to do every day. And that's a great, now Cynthia, to your point, that's kind of a great way to live, is just kind of keep trying and say, I want to go that direction, and just keep trying to forge that direction.
Because people don't know what they want. This is true of consumers,
yes.
And it's true of everybody else. It's like, if we base everything we do on everything that has come before us, like how safe and boring, and like, we're going to miss the point. right?
Yes.
And I think that like you see this, I mean, I think it's very obvious when you see it with like new products that people are like, how did I ever live without this? But like probably the person who made I don't know, like kombucha is the thing that comes to mind. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought that kombucha would have this like huge, that everyone would be drinking kombucha and think it's so awesome. I would have thought it would just like stay in this little hippy dippy community, whatever. And probably the people, GT Dave or, you know, whoever, you know, starting to make that were like, everyone was probably laughing him off the stage for a while. And now, like, look, it's everywhere. So there's like 100 examples like that. And I think you have to have that faith of like, if I believe in what I'm doing and I'm going to keep going. And like, I think that's the most important thing.
Mild delusion.
Yeah, for sure.
Mild delusion.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Or full on case of, which I'm also, you know, I'm okay with that too. If this is a future that's just absurd, then maybe we don't.
Let's go.
Yeah, or maybe we're not allowed to exist as a society anymore if we just keep wasting away. So, yes.
That is one of my large fears.
Yes. Well, then now we get to end on that note. I loved this. Thank you all. Thanks for finding the time
nice.
across the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love this too.
Glad we did it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, everybody, I'll round this out then. Finding, untangling circularity, selling circular. You know where to find us. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of these things. Thanks for listening.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.